Here, I want to introduce the topic of working with the lens corrections panel inside of the Develop module. So let's head over to the Develop module and then let's open up this panel. Now, what's really fascinating about this is we have two different options here. We can either use a profile or we can make some manual adjustments. You'll see that there are two different sets of controls. Another thing that's great about this is that correcting distortion and working with lens corrections really was limited to working in Photoshop until Lightroom 3. Now we can do all of these things and more from right inside of this non-destructive raw workflow inside of Lightroom 3. Alright, well first let's take a look at Profile. What Profile has to do with is auto-correcting some of the things that happen with certain cameras and lenses, or camera and lens combinations. And we all know that with wide-angle lenses, there's a certain amount of distortion. Well, what you can do is you can enable profile corrections, whether with a wide-angle lens or a zoom lens for that matter. And when you click on that option, Lightroom will then help you determine a profile in order to correct the image. Here it's selecting a camera make, a model, and profile. Now if it wasn't able to pick that up, you can always click on these pull-down menus and then make the appropriate selection in order to choose from these different options. Now, not all lenses are covered, but many of them are, and you'll find that these profiles will really help you out with different types of photographs. Now, right here, of course, I'm showing this with a wide-angle image, yet keep in mind this works with all different types of lenses and also all different types of distortion. Alright, well here you can see that it is indeed correcting the image. Click on the flip switch, there's before and then after. So it's improving the overall distortion and also the vignetting that was occurring from shooting with this wide-angle lens. If we want to dig deeper, well, we can go into these sliders. These sliders are going to be pretty subtle, but you'll see that I can change the overall distortion amounts here, and I can make my own fine-tune adjustments in order to get the image to look exactly as I want it. I can also work with things like chromatic aberration, which are little fringes of color that you can see around the edge of certain wide-angle shots in certain situations. Here with this image there aren't any of those problems, so I'll skip that slider and move to vignetting. We can use this to either work on vignetting to brighten it up or to darken it back down. And again, we can find just the right spot here. And all of these controls are working together in order to create a correction which should improve our photograph. One great way to see the before and after is to press the backslash key. There's before and then there's after. Well, let's say that you like what's been done here, but you want to push things even further or make some more dramatic adjustments. Well, here what we can do is go over to the manual controls by clicking on manual. Now, although we are going to manual, we're not overriding profile. Rather, we're working together with what we've already done. For example, if I want to continue to work on distortion, I can do so by swinging this one way or another. I can also make some changes vertically, and you can see how I'm tilting the image one way or another, and we can see how it's going to need to be cropped off in this area. So when this happens, we're losing some information. But let's keep going just so we can deconstruct these controls. What about horizontal? Here we'll see a shift from one side to another, and then also we have the ability to rotate our photograph in order to change the perspective of the image. What about scale? Well, scale can be helpful if, for example, we're losing some detail on the edge. Well, we can scale this up so that it fits within that specific crop area. Again, to see the before and after, press that backslash key. There's before, there's after. The great thing about this is it's completely non-destructive. So if we want to change it one way and then perhaps another, we can do so in order to come up with different interpretations or different variations with our photographs. We can also work with the lens vignetting. And here you can see we have these lens vignetting controls. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Let's say that we've made some changes and that we want to reset what we've done. Well, to do that, hold down Option on a Mac, Alt on Windows, then click on Reset Transform. That will take all of those settings back to normal. Okay, well what about this Constrain Crop option? What's interesting is that you can tie together your lens correction work with your crop. For example, if I decide to remove a lot of distortion, well, I'm going to see that I can't really have an image with all of this excess area. Now, I could simply select the crop tool and crop that out. I could use my scale slider to scale that so that I wasn't seeing the gray in the background. Or I can click on Constrain Crop. This will then make sure that when I make these adjustments, it's going to affect the overall crop of the image, so that the crop is now connected to this manual adjustment that I made inside of my lens corrections panel. Now just to illustrate this, let's press the R key in order to activate the crop tool. Well, here you can see that what Lightroom did for me was it defined how I could create a crop, the largest crop size possible that would fit with this particular lens correction that I've made. So it's synchronizing that with the overall scale and also rotation and distortion, horizontal and vertical changes as well. The great thing about this is that if we don't like the crop, well, we can always modify it further by simply working with our normal crop techniques. Let's say we want a little bit of a tighter crop. Well, we could do that, and then we could press enter or return or double click inside of that area in order to apply that particular crop. So as you can see, we can work with this lens correction panel in some pretty powerful ways, whether to make some subtle changes or to perhaps enhance or modify our images in some more creative or corrective ways.